Welcome back to the third and final segment of our discussion today. We've been fascinated by, a lot of the aspects of our discussion. Now, one of the areas that obviously comes to mind is the issue of the current issues, because there's so much emphasis in terms of, relating what is happening in class and the developments in science. Simpiwe, science is not static by all means. There's quite a lot of developments in the field of science, particularly astronomy, which is an area of particular interest for you. Is it possible that we can, at the level of grade 8 and 9, talk about the current issues like your SKA?
Definitely, science is dynamic and it influences our lives.
In more ways than one.
More ways than ones, and in every day. So yes, you have a lot of new developments that you have. We are currently, as you mentioned, the SKA project is in development in the sense that more dishes are being put up.
Okay.
You've got study opportunities where learners are getting bursaries and they are being directed and exposed to all
before we go to the opportunities, the geographical idealness of the Karoo. Maybe let's talk. Why did they not put it in Soweto, for argument's sake?
All right.
Just in my backyard.
Excellent question. Let me start at the facility I am at Hadrau. We are outside of Krugersdorp. We are even in a valley because we don't want a place that's highly populated where we might get radio frequency interference. It must be limited as much as possible. So when you think
typically
of
rural.
Yeah,
can you safely say that?
Ideally, much like it would be with optical telescopes, where there must be little light as possible. So if you are going to build a number of dishes, obviously you can't now come and build it in Gauteng. So Northern Cape has vast amounts of lands that are unoccupied. Then they build it there, and because you have sparsely populated areas, they are certain that you won't have a lot of RFI, radio frequency interference. You won't have a lot of cars driving past there.
The pollution, you name it.
You won't have cell phone towers, broadcast stations, and all these other things. And you've even got that area being called a radio reserve, much like you have a game reserve where you're keeping the bugs and all of that.
So in that context, it's kind of cordon off. It's a permanent arrangement.
Zone. It's a long-term thing because that's an investment of millions. Millions and billions if you're just looking at the whole timeline. Billions of whatever currency you would like to use, because it is a big project and it's an international partnership and collaboration project as well.
Attention as well.
Most definitely.
Speaking of the career opportunities readily available, you also want to invite even schools to come in, at Hadrau. You mentioned your Vets Planetarium is one of the areas which could be of particular interest, particularly in addressing this content. Now, what are some of the career opportunities that you may want to take advantage to share with our teachers so that we can even relay the same information to the learner?
If we were to go strictly into astronomy, we have a shortage. A very, very big skills shortage where astronomers are concerned, where people are just doing physics and maths at university, basically.
Which also influences the subject choices as well. You want to think of
most definitely. Of course, we have the engineers, we shall always talk of that scarcity, but at least those people are able to work wherever else. But with astronomers, the people that will deal with this data and will drive the use and sustainability of these instruments, where billions would have been invested so that they don't become white elephants.
So it's also a growing industry as well.
Most definitely. And you have a spin-off. Yes, you can talk about other countries, but in South Africa, you'll find that you've got all of this cabling for faster internet connection around
the
those
optic
areas.
fibers.
Yes. So that at least data can be processed that much better. You have much more reliability,
and you
connectivity.
Speak data, you're speaking to a teenager now. They understand the costs, attached to it because of the financial implications.
Yes. No, I fully understand what you're saying. Where you talk of data, they think of this thing that gets depleted when they are on their WhatsApp and this and that and that. But it is essentially all of what they'll be receiving about the universe and trying to analyze that and make sense of it so that they can
and also maybe project some of the very important events like you have got the eclipses. How important is it for us at the level of the educator to try and take cognizance and note of those very important dates?
It's very important what you're mentioning, where in trying to get this excitement in learners and in teachers is to publicize these events, these natural events like your solar eclipses. For example, in February, there will be one, even if it's a partial one.
Okay.
But even
there's a vast array of them. They're quite different.
Yes. It is basically just how much of the sun is being covered by the moon in that particular area.
So we predict, and then it does, it serves as empirical evidence.
Yes. And you can acquire these solar viewing glasses, and just using those comes with excitement itself.
To the child,
even if it was just a normal day, because the sun doesn't look as you would see it.
Okay.
With the naked eye.
You see it from a different perspective altogether.
Yes, where some of those rays are filtered out and all of these things. But basically having kids touching things and doing these activities and being excited.
In half a minute, closing remarks to teachers, the advice.
The teachers must be open to looking for resources, but also reach out to people like ourselves. And like I said, we try and do educator workshops as well.
As we believe you are partners
working
in
with
education.
district officials and all of that.
Yes.
But educators must understand they will not know everything. No one can. And that must not intimidate them to the point that they are not comfortable and or confident to teach. When you come across something challenging, be open-minded, look at different ways in which it is expressed. Through different resources, but also look at ways that you can simplify it for yourself and obviously translate it to the learners.
The most important person in this entire picture. I'd love for us to go on and on with the discussion, but there's quite a lot because of time constraints. Unfortunately, we've reached the end of our session today. But most definitely, I firmly believe that for myself, for one, and I hope it's the same for the teachers out there, it's been something that is, it assists us to think outside the box. You mentioned collaboration, the resources. Hopefully, they could take out some out of the, the discussion and improve the practice of teaching and learning of science, so that this element of excitement, is also instilled in the learner. Colleagues, that was it as far as the discussion on the solar system, particularly on this very, very, section, which can be exciting if managed carefully for the learner in particular. Because of time constraint, colleagues, we've reached the end of our session. From myself, Themba Ngcobe, is cheers and bye-bye for now.